Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your Gersnet Weekly Podcast, hosted by myself, Craig Gray, the independent Rangers podcast made for fans, by fans, and all of our content is absolutely free. You can get us over at gersnet.co.uk, where you can see a forum, some articles, and a wonderful history archive as well. You can also get us over on Twitter at Gersnet Online as well. Just before I introduce our guest for this evening, I need to give a shout out to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they've been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years, but absolutely delighted they're backing your podcast. You can get them over at forestprecisioneng.com. And you can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand. For information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Now, time to introduce my guest for the show this evening. First up, Ben Harshaw. Ben, how you doing, apart from the obvious?
Yeah, I was going to say football aside, I'm not too bad, but yeah, football's the main concern at the minute.
That's good. Did you have a good Christmas?
Yes, mate. Yeah, not too bad. Kids went mad and all that, but apart from the man flu, yeah, not too bad.
I know. And also introducing my other guest this evening, Mr. Colin Armstrong. Colin, same question to yourself. Apart from the obvious, how you doing? How was your Christmas?
Well, I'm a bit like our Master in Chief. Frankie, I had the flu over Christmas, so I genuinely was quite ill over a sort of week and a half, 2 weeks. So I've only just kind of got over that, and then Rangers come along and ruin everything again. So yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had something as well. Thankfully, no as long as that, but it's just the same into every single winter. I always seem to come down with something. And I've got a team just.
Well, I'm the opposite. I tend not to get these things, but this thing it gave me a proper kick, and I must admit, I was a bit surprised at how fierce it was. It laid me low, but there we go. No as low as Rangers do, but there we go.
Well, I know, it's like you think you're recovered and then boom, they just hit you when you're down, as they always seem to do. Ben, I'll start with you, mate. Obviously talk about today's debacle at Fir Park after an even bigger one on Thursday night in Paisley. First things first, we start in 11. I got off the supporters bus just as the team was being announced and everybody's walking to the ground, and everybody said the same thing. FFS, Kieran Dowell, what we doing, basically. That was a collective groan from everyone walking to the ground. Was that kind of the same for yourself?
Oh, massively, yeah. I mean, yeah, just baffling. Baffling is the first word that comes to mind. Not going to defend Kieran Dowell. Don't think he's good enough to be a Rangers player or anything. But talking to Frankie just before we were on air there, and one of the things you will say if you are going to make any defence of him is if you're going to start him, if you're going to play him in a game where we need to win, give him a bit more minutes in the build-up. Bring him on for 20 minutes, bring him on for 15 here and there. Get the fella reintroduced to the team. Don't just throw him in at the deep end and make him. Yes, he isn't good enough. There's no doubt about that. But it's easy to make him your scapegoat. Play him on the right wing in a game like that. It's only going to end up one way. And it did. Similarly, to go into a game like that is so important for the manager, for the team. We're trying to go into the biggest game now of the season coming up on Thursday with momentum, with confidence, and you make seven changes, and you've got no rhythm. I understand rotation, but we don't have the squad depth. We don't have the quality to rotate. And we were found out, but again, time and again, this manager is making subs at half time because he's getting the initial team wrong, and it appears that sports science is running the club rather than the manager. So it isn't good enough. It just isn't good enough.
Colin, Ben made an interesting point there about sports science, and we sort of heard the manager's comments about that earlier. Is this the manager's decision? Is it, the sports science department? I don't quite know what the issue is here. The thing that's always annoyed me about Clement is the fact that when a player comes back from injury, they need to come on for 20 minutes for about 5 games in a row, then you start them for 2 games and they're injured again. It's like you can never just put them back in, although we seem to do that with Cortez today in a way. Even though, this is the thing, it's like Cortez can't make an impact in the last, 3 games from the bench where every game went to the wire, but yet you can start him in, a big game like that at a tough away ground, against a team that, they'll be sitting back and want to kick all sorts out of you. So some of the decisions they're just baffling, to be quite honest. What was your thoughts on the lineup?
I think everyone's got the same opinion in the lineup. I've not seen anyone come away with any sort of positive comments about that starting lineup. And it's on the manager. I mean, he can go on about sports science and all the rest of it, but his job is to select a team. He's got to select a team that will get through each game that we come up against. So it's on him, and it's a trend. It's not a one-off. This is a trend that's sort of happening far too often with Clement, as Ben pointed out there. He's having to make multiple changes far too often at half-time in games. When I saw that team today, I was in one of my WhatsApp chats. The minute that team came out, the first thing I said, so multiple changes at half-time again. And that's kind of exactly what happened. I mean, the team today was baffling. I thought the team against St Mirren wasn't great either. When I saw that initial lineup, I was a bit like, don't know about this. I mean, as much as Dowell's coming in and Dessers is coming in, I mean, they're the two that are obviously getting a lot of the focus. I think Cortez starting as a puzzler as well, because we could have done with someone like him coming off the bench against St Mirren a couple of days ago there, and he wasn't used. So you obviously think, well, he's obviously not fit enough, and then he's flung into the starting lineup today. So there are just, in my opinion, and as I said, I don't think I'm alone on this. There's just far too many question marks about his selections. There's far too many question marks about his substitutions. How many times he has to make substitutions at half time to retrieve games that are getting lost. And even in general, I think even when some games are going okay, some of these substitutions, I'm just like, I am not getting the thinking here. Now, he's a professional and we're all amateurs, I get that. David Edgar made a good point today in Heart and Hand that, if the plebs in the stand are getting it right and the manager, who's a paid professional, is the one that's getting it wrong, then there's a problem. And there is a problem. I mean, if the new CEO, the new chair and the board are not discussing succession planning right here and now, then there's a serious issue, because in my opinion, this manager's done. His race is run. He's completely lost the support. I don't know anyone who still has faith in this guy. The performances are shambolic. He's messaging the supporters this mythical 2 month of improvements. It's just that there is far too much going on with him, and it felt like it was going to be a bad day today when that team was announced, and so it was proved.
Yeah, you're right anyway, Colin. We are definitely all plebs in the stands. That's definitely for sure. Ben, look, Clement has had to face a lot of, he's had a bit of a tough ride at times, in terms of, the budget which he's been given. I know we did spend a wee bit of money, but generally speaking, he's not had as much to spend as other Rangers managers. And I was going to say the injuries, but now it's becoming quite clear that the injury crisis is one of his own making now. And that is the thing for me more than anything that's really, really annoying me about him. It's the injuries. That is something that he said quite a few times, actually, about a year ago, he would fix it. And a year later, it's actually worse. And it's also his signings that are getting injured as well. So it's not as if you can say, it's the likes of Ryan Jack or Kamal Roof who were like that anyway. They're gone. It's guys that he signed. And apart from Tom Lawrence today, he had a fully fit 11 to choose from, which I know has been rare throughout his career at Rangers. But apart from one player, he had near enough a fully fit 11. And it was the same probably against St Mirren as well. And he just keeps chopping and changing it. Now, he doesn't know what his best 11 is. We don't know what the best 11 is. I mean, we just seem to be on a hiding to nothing now.
Yeah. I'm going to look slightly hypocritical because I was on with yourself just before Christmas, the Friday before the Dundee game, and we were having a conversation about the manager, and I said, based upon what I had seen in the last few weeks, I wouldn't be making the change at that point. And I know it's only a week later, but a week's a long time in football. And there is the thing with Clement is, or with Rangers at the minute, rather, there is mitigating circumstances when you look at the budget, when you look at the injury situation, things like that. But every time he comes out and has an interview, opens his mouth, he does not help himself. This is the manager who just going into the festive period said that there's no excuses to fixture pile up. The amount of fixtures isn't an excuse, and we're not going to have it be an excuse. Then he says that we can't play Charney, we can't play things. So which is it? This 2-month thing. One, we haven't played well for 2 months. We've been better for the last few weeks up until this week gone. But it hasn't been 2 months. That's for sure. But even if let's play devil's advocate and say that yes, we were better for 2 months, we were brilliant for 2 months. Does that excuse two terrible performances like that? No, it doesn't. The 2 months has been and gone. Even if I'm being very kind and giving him the 2 months, but you're only as good as your last game, and the most important one's your next game coming. And he seems to be making it up as he goes along in terms of selection. He doesn't know his best team, and this is a year and a bit into the job. We're not seeing what style of play is. We're not seeing that he understands who he wants to play consistently, bar maybe 2 or 3 players, which are blatantly obvious. So the thing when it comes down to talking about the manager's future is there are circumstances. We've had to rebuild all that. That goes in any manager's favour. However, it has to come down to this. We could say, right, we're giving him this season regardless. But the truth is, if any of us sit here and ask ourselves, is he the man that's going to take this club forward for the next 4 or 5 years? And the answer is no. It's definitely no, because every time he speaks, he's either contradicting himself or he's coming up with mad excuses. The results don't back it up. His own signings, you make a good point there when you say that he was the one who says he's going to fix the injury situation. Don't make statements like that. You can't guarantee that. So you're just going to look stupid, or that his Rangers team are going to look brilliant in October. October's a long time away. So he's not the man to take us forward. He has no real plan. So to me, wait until the end of the season doesn't make sense. I think we've got the new CEO in, we've got the new chairman in. Now we're trying to build for the future. So cut your losses now is the way I think it has to be. Because he's just not going to take us forward, and he's not going to consistently win us trophies. Clement, he's just not going to.
The thing is, Ben, see when he's speaking in interviews and stuff, he's actually coming across to me as a guy that knows that he's not going to get sacked. Like deep down, it seems that he was maybe told at the start of the season that you basically get a free hit this season. I think that's just me thinking about stuff up. And one thing that I've been thinking about recently, obviously, it was him and Muscat that were the last two for the job last year. But I'm actually starting to believe that maybe the board made the choice of Clement because he was the best person to deal with, not a rebuild, but a downsizing of the club. And he was someone that was willing to accept basically a season of mediocrity. And maybe Muscat wasn't. Because I think with Muscat, with him, you need money, you need players in specific positions, and you need the best players in the league in those positions, which, they might speak about it later, but which is why I think right now that might not be the best appointment, because we've just not got the squad to do what he wants to do, I don't think. But I'm starting to think the more when you see things like this, that maybe Clement was just installed as a sort of guy that was basically there to accept, not, as I say, not a rebuild, but a downsizing. But that's just stomach in me. We'll go on to the actual game for a moment or two. Unfortunately, Colin, poor start, as we discussed. Motherwell did eventually take the lead after 15 or 16 minutes or so. I'm not even going to attempt to butcher the guy's name that scored for them, but and was right in front of me behind that goal. It did look like a handball. In terms of the overall decision to award the goal, we can speak about the horrific defending as well, but do you think it was the right decision to award the goal?
I'm not convinced. I'm not. I mean, my understanding is, if you get an advantage from the ball hitting your hand, then it's a foul. But I mean, the rule may have a subsection somewhere that sort of says that's not the case. I don't know. But I mean, even if you are arguing that the goal shouldn't stand from VAR, I don't think we should be focused. There are times when we should be angry at decisions and all the rest of it, but I don't think this is one of those occasions. I think we should be angry at the defending and angry at the goalkeeping from Butland. It's shambolic. I think if we're going to focus on the should it have been a goal or should it have not been a goal, you're missing the point. I mean, in terms of a defensive clearance of a header, it's a shocker. Right, fair enough, it comes off the boy's hand, an argument to say it shouldn't stand or whatever, but that's the first issue. It's a shocker of a clearance. The next one is that it's Butland. I mean, the guy doesn't even, he just sort of stubs his toe against it. He just gets to the ball first. I mean, he doesn't put it in the corner. It just goes right through Butland. It's another howler of a mistake. I mean, he had a shocker against St Mirren with the penalty. I mean, that's another absolute shocker of a goal to concede. And he had a terrible day again between the sticks. I think he got away with one with Tony Watt. I mean, again, technically, I think it's a foul. Tony Watt touches him. Goalkeepers are overprotected. So 9 times out of 10, I think the ref's going to give that. But it doesn't detract from how poor that punch was to punch it into his own net. And it's a problem. There's no doubt about it. It's an issue. He is a shadow to the keeper he was last season, particularly over the last 2 or 3 weeks. But I think all this season he's been really, really poor and, a shadow of what he gave us last season. And so that's what I think we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on our own mistakes with that goal. I think should it have stood? There's a debate to be had, maybe, but we gave VAR the opportunity to put one over us because we didn't clear the ball when we could clear the ball, and the defending and the goalkeeping is below pathetic. I mean, it's just so bad that it's embarrassing, really. And so that's what we should be focusing on, because it's players' individual errors that are costing us.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that annoys me most about this Rangers team, and there's a lot of things that annoy me about them, but we are far too nice. It's almost as if Robin Propers just went, I'll no bother clearing it because everyone in football is nice, and that was definitely a handball, so it's definitely going to get ruled out. That's not how it works. And although he's only been in Scotland for a few months, surely he would know by now that the chances of us getting a big game decision like that going in our favour is probably going to go against us right now. It was like near the end of the game as well. Obviously, there was 10 minutes added on at the end. There was a VAR check and there was a couple other things happening. So there probably should have been an extra 2 or 3 minutes added onto that as well. And we just kept going back, as if to say, well, we're definitely going to have an extra 2 or 3 minutes added on because that's what should happen. And yeah, maybe that is what should happen. But in this league, in this country, it doesn't happen. And we found that out then because we never got the extra time added on that should have been added on. And it was the same with that first goal, putting it in all that moaning. It just stopped. Like, Ben, it's the first thing you're taught when you're playing football as a kid, play to the whistle. And I get that, we've got VAR there now and stuff like that. But just because the rules should be implemented a certain way doesn't mean that it's going to happen, especially for us at the moment.
Yeah, and there's a real naivety to our squad in that sense. And funny, what you touch upon proper, and one of the things that he was brought in for supposedly was leadership, and experience. And, he's been a captain over at Holland as well. So you would expect him more that play to the whistle. Yeah, most basic thing you can think of in football. I would agree with Colin in terms of I'm more concerned about our part in that goal. I think my understanding is, well, I could be wrong again, but my understanding was that if you get any advantage that directly leads to a goal from hand, and technically it should be ruled out. I could be wrong on that, but that was my understanding. So I don't think the goal should have stood. However, we had umpteen opportunities to prevent the goal ourselves. I'm worried about what we can control. And again, goalkeeping is poor. The defendant is weak, shambolic. Really, we have any opportunity to prevent that goal. So I'm concerned about the Rangers element in the goal, and how easy it is and how soft we are. At the back, I understand there's injuries, and it's not our first choice. But anybody that's playing at a level or is playing for Rangers should be able to be given a better account of themselves in that. And yeah, I think we just need, as you touched upon. Yes, I thought there should have been extra minutes at the end of the game and all that, but our tempo wasn't a team at that stage that felt like they were going to go on and win the game. I think we could have played those 2-3 minutes, 4 or 5, another 6. I don't think we were going to find that goal from anywhere. The tempo was great. Maybe skipping ahead here, but the tempo was great at the start of the second half and getting ourselves level. But then it almost seemed to be the mentality of, we're level in the game, job done. Now's the time you've got the momentum in the game. Now's the time you drive on and you go and you win that game. And it was there to be won.
It was the same against the Mirren, Ben. You know what I mean? It was the same. Yeah. It was the exact same. The minute we got the equaliser, we stopped.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. That's it. And that's mentality. But that should also come from a manager. Instilling. And I mean, they shouldn't need it, but it should be instilling into them. All right, you've got yourselves back into the game. You've had a poor first half in both those games, but you've now done enough to get back into the game. Get out there and win it. You're better than both these teams. Go and show it. Go and win the game. But we just seem to be like, yeah, okay, sure, we're back in the game. It'll come, but it doesn't nothing's handed to you, as we should know.
No, you're right. Second goal, Colin. I think it starts from a Sterling mistake. He goes to head the ball and it just goes everywhere, really, back to the Motherwell player. The Motherwell number 55, again, apologies, I'm not going to pronounce the boy's name, but I thought, to be fair to him, I thought he looks a decent player, to be fair, and I think he was giving us trouble throughout the whole game, to be honest. He turns Tav an absolute belter. I mean, I've not been Tav's biggest fan, especially this season, but could he have done better with that one? I don't know. To be fair, sometimes I think you need to take your hat off and say, you've maybe been done by a good bit of skill, but for me, again, it starts with a Sterling mistake, just like it did on Thursday. Sterling is someone he's been annoying me a wee bit lately, and I know he's been getting played out of position and stuff like that. But again, just two errors that have led to 2 goals that have been the goals that have eventually, at the end of the game, cost us. It's not really looking good for him at the moment in terms of being in that centre-back position. But again, is it just one of those ones where we've not really got a choice but to play him there? Or can we look at even bringing in someone like King or even Nsiala, who was actually signed as a first-team player, but we've not seen a sniff of him?
I mean, in terms of the goal, I mean, it's a poor header. I think Tav can do better, to be honest with you. I mean, don't get me wrong, the boy brings it down well. But I think Tav's done too easily. And the thing that annoys me more about Sterling, rather than the header, he's then got an opportunity to shut him down. And, as he's done Tav, to me, Sterling should be running full pelt at the boy and trying to close him down. And he doesn't. And he actually turns his back. He turns it as the boy shapes to shoot. Sterling turns his back. And he uses Sterling as a sort of guide to curve it round him into the corner. And it's just... I think it was Boyd that said that, there's one Motherwell player in the box and 5 Rangers players, and the boy still manages to score. So it's another poor goal. It's a really weakly defended situation that creates a goal, and it is happening far too often. Now, I get that we have a situation at centre half at the moment with injuries and stuff like that. But to be frank, brutally frank, the fact that we went in here again with Liam Balogun as a sort of cover centre half, and he's had to be our main centre half. Now, I like Balogun. I think he does the job, but the fact that he's still being used in the way that he's being used tells you everything about how that area of the park has been managed in terms of recruitment and stuff like that. I think even though Goldson had his issues last year, we've definitely downgraded in that area of the park. There's no doubt about it. Even when we've got our two first pick centre halves, I think we're susceptible there. There's issues. As much as Suter is our main centre half, I think he's got mistakes in him. I'm not totally convinced by him. Proper has just been a disaster of signing, really. I mean, I'm genuinely struggling to remember a centre half as slow as him. He is so slow. His decision making is ropey and just poor all round. And you know what? Maybe it is time to consider bringing in Leon King, because is the boy going to do any worse than what we're seeing at the moment? I'm not sure. And at least you're actually playing a natural centre half at centre half, and that would maybe allow Sterling to play somewhere else, because I think, as we've seen over the last couple of games, I don't think centre half is his ideal position. But yeah, it's just another example of where we are as a club at the moment. You know what I mean? Everything just seems to be a bit of a shambles, and centre half is an issue at the moment. And you look at the two games coming up, obviously the Celtic game on Thursday, not confident about that at all. You know what I mean? I was sort of thinking, a couple of days ago, thinking they'll probably win it by the odd goal. Actually, I think the thumping that we all thought was coming in the cup final might be coming on Thursday if they turn up with their A game and we turn out similar performances as we have done over the last couple of games. So you've got that to come. You've got a really hard game against Celtic to come. And then you're away to Hibs. You know what I mean? And they're flying at the moment. So you are genuinely looking at the prospect of us taking 1 point out of 4 games over this Christmas period, which is, again, if that's not sacking territory, then I don't know what is, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. The thing is, although we are down to the bare bones at centre half, I mean, Robin Proper was, 2-3 million quid. I mean, he cost more than the entire Motherwell team put together. And even though Dujon Sterling's no an actual centre back, I still think Dujon Sterling's a good player and he's got a lot of good qualities. So it's just to be conceding the goals.
This is another point, Craig. I think it was Ben mentioned earlier on about the sort of financial disparity between us and Celtic, which is a legitimate argument for not winning titles at the moment. They have far more financial muscle than we do. We're 14 points behind them. They're only responsible for 3 of those points. We've only played Celtic once. So of those 14 points, only 3 of those belong to Celtic. We are dropping points against all the other teams who we have the financial disparity over. We have a budget far superior to everyone else in that division, apart from Celtic, yet they are taking points off us at will. You know what I mean? And you look at Aberdeen today, beat again. They've won 2 games in the last 10. 2 games in the last 10. And we are still only 2 points ahead of them. And it's just a shambles. It is, and the people in charge of the club need to take control of this, because you've noticed empty seats at Ibrox over the last few weeks. If we get beat on Thursday and we go 17 points clear, beat again off Hibs next week, you're talking about January and being 20 plus points behind them. I mean, the season is done in terms of the league, but how many people are going to be turning up at Ibrox between now and the end of the season to watch a league that's already done? You know what I mean? It's the crowd are already turning. I don't know if you've seen the footage at the end of the game. The players were trying to go up to applaud them, and when the camera panned on the fans were basically telling them to turn back round and go back the way they came. You know what I mean? That connection between the supporters and the team is breaking down. The faith between the supporters having the manager is now non-existent. The club really do need to take control of this, because it's a situation that will just fester if they don't.
What would you do then, Colin? Because obviously you have said that a few times with the manager's position, but I know you're saying get rid of him tonight. But realistically, who would you have in charge then for Thursday? But also moving forward, do you want an interim guy in to maybe the end of the season to steady the ship? Or, I mean, Muscat's contract is up in a couple of days, so do you just go for him? Or?
Well, I mean, I suppose there is an argument to say you keep Clement in a job at the moment and use the time between now and the end of the season to identify candidates and plan your way forward. Because, I mean, the league's done. I mean, there is just no way this group are winning a championship. So that's gone. So you're looking at second again to ensure you get group stage European football and all that kind of stuff. So essentially, all you have to do that is to beat Aberdeen. If you've got enough faith in Clement to do that, then there maybe is an argument to say, for the short term, you keep him in post and use the time between now and the end of the season. The problem with that is the supporters won't wear it, because the standard of performances are horrific. The nonsense that he's spouting just pisses everybody off. So you run the risk of making it quite a toxic environment, because supporters are angry just now. I think if we were to get more of the same from now until the end of the season, then you're into protests in the car park and all that sort of stuff, and fans are really going to turn. So I think it will be sooner rather than later, because the club can't just sit idly back and watch this develop, because it's just a toxic situation as far as I'm concerned, and it's getting worse. You just had to look at it. Started today when that team came out. When the team was announced, we're already going into it in a bad position because of the result against St Mirren. You see that team come out, and that's it. It just spiraled from then on in. And so I mean, in terms of who I'd get to replace, to be honest with you, that's the issue. I mean, I can't think. I mean, Muscat's an obvious one, because he was in the sort of run in the last time. You could maybe look at him, but we need something, because I actually believe, as poor as someone as the recruitment has been, I think this group is capable of more than it's providing. I think if we were a properly coached team, then we would pick up a lot more points than we're actually picking up at the moment. So I think a new man would make the difference if it was the right man, but it's identifying who that is. That's the issue.
Yeah, it is a difficult one, because we're all saying you can't just sack managers every year, but my God, Clement's testing operations for that, isn't he?
I think I genuinely believe that's the only reason he's still on board. You know what I mean?
Well, that's it. And I mean, to be fair, I think if anyone is saying that he still should remain in the job, it's not so much because they think that he'll turn it around. It's more because they go, well, what's the alternatives, or logistically, what is it do we actually do? If it's me, if you're going to sack him, unless Muscat's your first choice and he's out of contract and you get him in now, I would just put in a temporary guy to the end of the season, because it's no worked the last few years. We've brought in Beale through the season, we've brought in Kashina through the season, we've brought in Clement through the season, and they get an initial bounce, but then I think we go into the next season with a wee bit of a false sense of security, or in a really bad position like we did with Pedro, and they're already on a hiding to nothing. So it's one hell of a decision, but we've got tons of games coming up as well. Like, if we were to sack him tonight, we've got a game on Thursday. Who would even take the team for an Old Firm game at Ibrox on Thursday? Do you know what I mean? No, it might be the thing that the players need, but honestly, I don't know. And that's the thing, Ben, that you're kind of at a loss now, because you're just like, what do we actually do? Because we all don't think that this guy is a guy long term, but realistically, the chances, I don't think he's going to lose his job, to be honest, in the near future. Maybe if Thursday goes horrendously bad and we get absolutely tanked, maybe. And I know Colin's saying that we can't just sit by idly and not do anything, but I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if we do.
No, I've heard that one where basically, and I don't want to change the manager every year either, but I've heard that one where they're saying, we need to give him time. We can't be doing this all the time. But that's not a reason to not sack. That's not, if we want to move forward, as a club, we need to make the brave decisions. And one of the things that concerns me is, as a whole, the club, it took far too long to replace the CEO, for example, and we should already have contingency plans for Clement. We should have even if he was doing well, we should have had a list of people in there that could replace him had he been poached, or for whatever reason it breaks down. We should have forward planning, and be that in the playing squad, on a board level, and obviously manager. But there's more reasons for me to make the change now than not. I can't understand. I do think that even if we brought in an interim person, I would rather have an interim person, put it this way, than keep Clement till the end of the season, because the interim at least gives something new, takes a little bit of pressure off in terms of the playing staff, because I think how negative it is right now, and I think while Clement's there, and while it isn't going to change, I don't think he's going to change, and I don't think he's going to be able to make the change. So I don't think the overall negativity is going to change for the better. And therefore, I think some of these players are still going to be there with whatever manager is in place next season. So to allow them to try and thrive between now and the end of the season, no, we're not going to win the league. That's obvious. But to allow them to get a bit of confidence for the fans, to get connected to them again, to get belief again, I think making that change makes that a possibility. And I think even if we did bring in the interim manager, I think anyone would have us finishing second. So I don't think keeping Clement, a reason to do that is because you want to finish second. I think with the squad that we have, we're going to finish second regardless. I think we're, okay, Aberdeen were miles ahead of us for a while, but I think realistically we were always going to finish second. We're not going to be anywhere near first, but we're with too much of an advantage over the other teams, and that's also considering that we're going to be hopefully bringing in players. Also, if we're going to hopefully bring in one or two in January, I would rather they were working in a more positive environment, and experiencing the club for the first time in a more positive environment. And again, it comes down to whether Clement being there is constructive towards that, and I don't think that it is. So I think it's the decision needs to be made. I think with as I say, with new board structure, and now is a chance to kind of do that refresh rather than why keep this as it is for 6 months. And settle for mediocrity for 6 more months, and then make a change, and then have to start again. Whereas you can make the first steps towards recovery now.
I mean, I think with January as well, it's not as if regardless of who's in charge, we're going to be getting a sort of blank checkbook. At the end of the day, it will just be loan signings, maybe frees if you can get any, or pre-contracts and stuff like that. We're not going to be signing any big name players, unless players leaving. Maybe we can spend a wee bit of money, but your problem the last year is we've accepted bids for players and they've just refused to leave. Dessers and whatnot. No point in elbow still, but next time maybe we get an offer for you and we accept it, just go. But nah, I genuinely don't know. I mean, Colin, as I said earlier, I think for me, the best scenario would be to get rid of the manager and get in an interim guy until the end of the season. Try and get a tune out the players. Try and win the Scottish Cup. We've still got Europe there as well. We've done okay in Europe this year. But people keep saying Muscat and stuff like that, and I'm not against that. But my fear with bringing in someone like Muscat is we get him in January. We know the league's done now, and he's already starting from a position of failure. And let's be honest, even in the 2 or whatever Old Firm games left that he's got, what are the chances of us getting results in those games? So then you're going on sort of Pedro territory where you brought him in mid-season. He's been gubbed twice off Celtic, and then you're going into the following season saying, well, he can't beat Celtic, even though maybe it wasn't strictly his fault that first season. So it's just a mess, to be quite honest. And honestly, I've not got a clue what we do.
I mean, I think there is an argument to say that this is bigger than the manager, and it's the whole football department. We have to look at how that all operates. I was watching, again, having some chat on the WhatsApp. I was watching the Liverpool game today after the Rangers game. And they're top of the league, obviously. Now, I know Liverpool operate in a different financial world from what we operate, and they sign players that are well beyond our means. But I was having a wee look today at, relative budgets in the Premier League. They have the 5th biggest budget in the Premier League. So if the rule of budget plays out, Liverpool should finish 5th. You know what I mean? But they're not. They're going for a title because they've been really smart with their recruitment. So they've identified players that the 4 clubs above them, I think it's Arsenal, City, Chelsea and Man United, players that they maybe didn't think were good enough. Liverpool have taken them. Someone like Salah, for example, who was at Chelsea and was deemed a bit of a dud. You know, they've been really, really clever. I think Richard Hughes is there. He's in charge of the whole sort of football department. They're just really shrewd. I mean, they're buying players at top dollar, but not the sort of top dollar that your Cities and your Chelseas and all that kind of stuff are spending. And so to have the fifth highest budget, and to be, you know, a good few points ahead in the Premier League, playing really good football, that shows you it can be done. You know, the budget thing doesn't necessarily mean it's a barrier, but you just have to box a bit cleverer than we are at the moment. And so I think as a club, it needs to look at the football department in terms of how we recruit, who we're recruiting. We know we've got a limited budget. How do we utilise that to its best effect, to get players on the park who get us goals and wins more times than not? Because if you can, you know, beat the rest, it then comes down to the 4 games against them. And we showed in the game at Hampden there that in a one-off game you can compete. So it just comes down to being a bit shrewder, I think, in terms of what we're doing. You know, over the last 2 or 3 years, we have chucked an awful lot of money at some pretty average players. You know what I mean? Players that are just not doing it for us. And that has to change. We have to have a better way of recruiting players, finding the players that are good enough to do the job, that are maybe just slightly off the radar, that you don't have to spend a huge amount of money on, and just be cleverer and smarter in how you do your business. Bring them in cheap, sell them on at a profit, that kind of thing. And we keep on getting told about this mythical player model that never seems to happen. But that, I mean, come on. As I said earlier on, I think he's done. The part of me does think that this is a wider issue at how the club operates. I mean, you just have to look at it. I mean, whoever gave Beale the money to go and spend what he spent on the players that he did, you know what I mean? I mean, that was just ridiculous. You know, we've chopped and changed from having a director of football to not having a director of football, and then we have a director of football. We need to have a fixed sort of model of this is how we recruit players. This is how we identify players. We get as many sort of scouts and increase our network out there to identify talent as early as possible, get them in, develop them, and get them good enough to win games and trophies for Rangers, and then sell them on. And that's it, because it can be done. You know what I mean? If a team, obviously in another league that operates on a different financial scale, but the same rules apply. It's, you know, if you've got the biggest budget, you should be winning the most games and winning trophies. The team down the road with the 5th biggest budget is currently romping that league because they've recruited wisely in terms of players. They've identified a coach that they think will do a job. That everything is just clicked, so it can be done. And I just think that's what Rangers need to do. They need to find a system that works cleverer and can help us bridge that gap between us and Celtic in terms of you know, the financial gulf. However, before we even do that, we need to deal with the other teams in the league, because we're dropping far too many points against them at the moment. But I think the issue at Rangers is maybe bigger than the manager. I just think there's a lack of structure, there's a lack of strategy in terms of how we recruit players and what we're trying to do.
But Colin, just to almost back up your point there, like, even I don't enjoy doing it, but to use Celtic as an example, like the players, the money that they've spent, you know, Matt O'Reilly was really cheap, brought in and then sold on for big money. That's the type of thing that you're going to do. But even it proves, like, the record signing with Engels is struggling with, and the boy that they signed from Dundee is playing better than him. So it doesn't have to be, you know, splash the cash. You know, it can be done. It's having a plan and having a structure. Where I feel we are haphazard, as you say. It's give Beale a bit of money and see what he wants to do with it and throw it around. Whereas there's no long-term vision, there's no long-term planning. And I think even going back to when we didn't sell the certain players back, even Morelos times, showed that we weren't thinking the big picture.
No, I mean, you look at 2 players on that team today, I mean, Danilo, 6 million. You know, Radvan, 5 million.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There is, I mean, as much as Danilo has sort of chipped in recently and all the rest of it, and looks like he could be a decent enough signing long term, there is nothing there to suggest that he is a £6 million player. So we've had our pants pulled down on that one. I would say it was the same with Radvan. You know what I mean? It's, you know, he's had wee moments as a Rangers player where he's looked, but one thing that really bothers me with Radvan is his size. It's just such an issue. Every time he plays, that left flank, they just put high balls over him. And, you know, if it's a set piece, they always aim for where he's marking. That's an issue. But take his height out of it. He's at no point has he looked like a £5 million sort of left back. So we have wasted a lot of money on average players, and that's as big an issue as the manager. I think we need to have a better strategy and a better system in place in terms of how we recruit players. Do we even, I mean, does the board even have an ambition in terms of a style for Rangers to play? You know what I mean? And you recruit players based on that style. You recruit your manager based on that. I don't know if there is. I genuinely don't know if there's any kind of structure or strategy in place.
Well, that's it. I mean, a few years ago, I think it was after we won the league, and Douglas Park was asked at the AGM, what's your strategy for Rangers? And he said, win trophies, you know, the buzzword that gets thrown around all the time. That's not a strategy. That's a desired outcome. But we want to know what is the plan to get there. Yeah. What is the actual plan and the structure and the strategy to get there? And it just
surely the strategy is the journey, not the outcome. You know what I mean? The strategy is how you plan to get there, not the actual outcome. So that's a ridiculous response to that question, to be honest with you, Craig.
Yeah, one of a few ones for him.
One of many.
I know. Well, let's be a wee bit happier. Ben, you mentioned Alfie earlier. Did any of you see him cutting about in a horse earlier in Brazil?
No, I didn't actually.
Did you not see that on Twitter? No, Morelos was. I think his team have just won the league or something like that.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and he celebrated cutting about on a horse.
I thought
on a horse.
I thought that was because he'd been banned for driving. He was using a horse. But there you go. I might be wrong.
Right, we can't laugh at that now. A guy nearly lost his life. We can't laugh at that. But no, the guy's a madman. You do miss him sometimes, as much as he annoyed you. But you say that, Colin, but you know, I'm sure you still miss him deep down. No, but he was a character, put it that way. I think we'll probably wrap up there then, anyway, considering half the cast has got some sort of cold or flu or the plague, and it's just got worse after watching Rangers. This Friday it'll be Rob and Alec on after the Old Firm game. So they'll be reviewing that and looking ahead to Hibs on Sunday as well. Colin, thanks for joining me tonight, mate. Have a happy new year.
You too.
Ben, thanks for joining me. Happy new year.
Yes, cheers, Craig. Same yourself.
Not a problem, guys. Thanks for joining us. And to the audience at home, we're live on YouTube at the moment. We'll be on all of the usual podcast providers in the coming day as well. And a happy new year to everyone at home as well. Bye for now, guys.